have listeners, innovators, and small business leaders. We do that through one-on-one consulting, through a robust SME network. We also do events and workshops like what you're going to experience today. We have programs like our 10X Growth Accelerator. But the best thing about everything that we do is that everything's at no cost to entrepreneurs, innovators, and small business leaders. The only thing that we ever charge for is membership to the AIC, this beautiful building that you're in, that is powered by Common Corporation. But the best thing is you don't have to have membership here in order to access all of our services at no cost. So you can come to workshops like this multiple times a month and engage with us in workshops or in one-on-one consults and things like that. So we are so happy to have you here today, but we are exceptionally happy to have Zach Carter with us from Dave Creek Media. Zach's going to talk to us about prospecting to profit. And so
sweet, thank you, Grace. So, well, first of all, you said exceptionally excited to have me here. I haven't spoke yet, so.
You look shocked when you said that.
All right. Well, first off, thank you to the conductor. Thank you, Erica, Grace, for reaching out and having me today. I love talking sales, so any chance I get to talk to people about sales and some of the sales process, I get a little warm and fuzzy on the inside. All right, so today we're going to be talking about prospecting, right? Prospecting is usually not the most fun part in the sales process, but it's kind of the most necessary when you really look at it, right? So, like Grace said, I'm with Dave Creek Media. I'm the Director of Revenue for Dave Creek. So what does that mean? It's everything revenue related, right? How do we generate revenue from that perspective? But I got my start right here in Conway at the University of Central Arkansas. I'm a kid. I was born in a small town outside of Fort Worth, Texas, called Bedford, Texas. You may have driven past it, and that's probably about it. And then me and my mother, we moved to Little Rock. I spent time in Little Rock, and then ended up going to UCA. And then after my time in UCA, I ended up going to Cintas, and then ended up in Memphis, Tennessee, out of all places, right? So I just kept moving further and further east. Spent time at Cintas and helped turn a location around from being one of the bottom 10% locations in the company to one of the top 15%. So it took a lot of hard work, but it was great. And one thing led to another. And I got a call from Glenn Crockett in the back room back there saying, "Hey, I want you to come on back home." So I'm back here in Arkansas. I'm glad to be back and glad to be in college. So look, before I get in here and I start talking about everything, I kind of want to lay some house, right? This is a workshop, okay? So let's workshop, all right? So at the end of the day, I'm not here to sit here and lecture you guys. If you have a question, ask it. It's okay. It's okay to ask any questions that you guys have from that perspective. Now, when we're talking about all this stuff we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about sales, right? But I always want to ask, what is your why before we even move into this? So that way you can always think about what your why is and why you started a business, okay? Why you started a business, or why you even might be thinking about starting a business, and why you're in this room, right? And then whenever you trace everything back to your why, how do you accomplish that why? Everything starts with sales, right? Because if you don't have any money to fund anything that you're trying to do, where are you gonna go, right? I can go drop off hey, I can give you a brand new Lamborghini, but if I ain't got no gas to put in the car, where we going? We're not going pretty far, right? Unless you got a Tesla, maybe you can plug it up, right? But anyway, so always think about your why. Never trace everything back to your why and why you're doing it, right? And so we'll go through and talk about some of the things to get there. So in the sales world, we function pretty much everything in the sales funnel. Are you guys familiar with a sales funnel? Pretty much what it looks like? Okay, for some of you guys who don't know what a sales funnel, I'll kind of go through what those steps look like. Hey, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. All right, so after we have a prospect, once we have somebody that we contact, right? We want to make them aware of us, make them aware of whatever your business is. If it's Overton Agency, if it's Top Notch, Heating and Air, we want to make them aware, okay? So there's a bunch of different things that you can do to make them from a standpoint of marketing, from a standpoint of introduction. There's a lot of different things that can lead to the awareness pipeline. That's just them knowing who you are, that you even exist. Now, they know you exist, but now, what do we do to make them like us, right? What can we do to pique their interest and to actually getting them engaged and getting them further down the funnel in the sales process? right? Now we got them interested. They're like, I might want to get out of bed in the morning and make their phone call. But now we have to think about certain tools to lead to the desired stage, right? To actually getting them to the point of where they're actually booking online, where they're making the phone call, where they're doing whatever they have to, which leads into what? Sales, right? Sales, which goes back to your why, okay? Which helps you out. This is what people talk about all the time in the sales process, right? People always talk about awareness. They talk about interest. They talk about desire, talk about action. You'll see companies lay out all these plans on how to handle business from the point of contact when you meet them. And then once you meet them, what can we do to engage them and make them an active customer? But one thing is that is the lost art, and what we forget about is how do we actually even get people to put in the funnel, right? How do we get people or how do we get businesses to actually put in our funnel? Okay, just a show of hands so I get a kind of idea of who's on the room. For the people in here who are representing B2B business, that's business to business companies, can you please raise your hand? Okay, all right. All right, and then B2C, that's our business to consumers. Okay, so we got a little bit of, we got a mixed bag of tricks in here, good. I like knowing that, so that way I know I'm not wasting my time and focusing on one, but we got a little bit of everything, so I'll make sure to carry that to that direction. All right, now, you know, my mama always told me, don't ever assume, okay? So I'm not gonna assume that everybody in this room knows what prospecting actually is, so therefore, I'm gonna give you my best definition of what prospects are. So who are prospects and what is prospecting? Prospects are potential customers. Prospecting is finding those potential customers. All right. So prospects are the people who we haven't put in the funnel yet. They're just out there existing, living their life, don't know anything about you. They're extremely unaware that you even exist. All right. And prospecting is the actual act in finding those customers. And that's what we're going to be going through today on what does prospecting look like and what's successful prospecting for your business. Here is the biggest misconception that drives me insane whenever we talk about the sales process. Oftentimes people get misconfused that prospecting is the same as lead generation. Lead generation is a function of marketing that has nothing to do with prospecting. Lead generation are the things that you do, like, posting those pretty pictures on Facebook. Maybe you have something on your website that people can go in and generate leads for you and fill out prompts and things of that sort. Or even something like the word of mouth stuff. That is not what we're talking about. Everything we're talking about today is stuff that you can do by simply getting up in the morning and being intentional, okay? So everything we're gonna go through is gonna be step by step on how to actually get prospects. All right, I figured you guys didn't want me to come here and waste your time with a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm actually gonna give you some tips that kind of make some of that stuff easy. All right, so first, once we've got up out of bed and we understand that we need to go get those prospects, first thing we need to kind of figure out where the heck are we going? What type of prospects are gonna be best for my business, all right? So that's going into our target audience and our ideal customer profile. Right, and this is one thing, if you do not know this about your business, I highly encourage you to know this yesterday, okay? But if you didn't know it yesterday, you're here today, so amen. All right, I'm gonna tell you how to figure it out today, okay? So look, I'm gonna give you 3 steps on how to do this. Step 1, analyze your current customers. Super easy. Figure out all the demographics, firmographics, and things about your current customers, right? Pay attention to the factors like their industry, the company size, the location, job titles of everyone you deal with, right? Like I know from our perspective in the marketing world, most of my clients are marketing directors that we deal with, right? That's the lane I'm in, right? If I was selling wholesale tires, most of my contacts would probably be car dealerships and places of that sort, right? If I was selling hair utensils, right? I'm probably selling a barbershop, beauty salon, and things of that sort, right? So figure out when you look at your active client list, which I'm sure all of you guys have, pull your active client list and see what commonalities are amongst those different businesses. All right. So once we've done that, we know those common traits and common characteristics. We want to do step 2. We want to research our market. We want to know what else is out there. And then also even competitor research is important too, to know from that perspective, but you want to research your audience, right? So you want to identify market trends, pain points, challenges that your product or service can address, okay? So also, you want to research competitors to understand their customer base and their target audience, okay? So once you do your research of your current market and where you're at, then you want to move on to step 3. And like I said before, if y'all have any questions, if I'm rolling through this a little too fast, we've got time for questions, okay? So feel free to ask. All right, so now, for all my B2C people in the house, you're selling to consumers, right? This is where we want to look at things like the demographic, right? I want to look at the type of age, the gender, the income, the education level, all of those types of things that are specific to the person, okay? Right? So I know if I'm selling hair combs, targeting me is probably not your best audience, right? You know, that's just probably not it. But maybe I'm selling a hairbrush, I might be your guy, right? So think about those type of demographics and those type of people. Get as granular as you can get. I've seen people do this and they get really specific. The more specific you get, the more that helps, right? Because now you know exactly who your audience is. B2B people in the house, our firmographics, okay? We can't look at demographics necessarily all the time from a perspective, because sometimes, you know, if we're selling to businesses, there's certain things that we need to know, like the industry, the company size, the location, if applicable, right? Like if you know if you're only selling in Conway, why are we looking at Miami, Florida for business, right? You know, if Conway is only in your service area. So demographics for B2C, firmographics are what we look up for B2B. Yes, sir.
So I'm B2C. On the demographics, what's the best way to go about finding the demographic information? So I sell beef. I roll up to 500 or 5,000 square foot houses, and I've been to trailer parks, deliver beef. But I don't necessarily survey them. I mean, is there a way to find the demographic information to find that common thread if there is one?
Yeah, there are actually a lot of ways. I mean, the first way you can call Dave Creek Media, give me a call, and I'd be glad to help from that perspective. But then the second off, there's other things you can do. You can look at whenever you're going back and you're analyzing your current customer list, you look at what commonalities that they have, right? There, I would imagine that I don't know your business. You just gave me that little piece of that little nugget. But I imagine that you're most likely selling to families, right? Because they're looking to purchase large quantities of meat, right? So then you can look at the neighborhoods that typically those people live in. If you're getting their address, their email, and all that information, you can look at the neighborhoods and communities in which they come from. And so then that way, you know, okay, if I sold 3 people in this neighborhood, now I can look at the neighbors here, there, and there, right? And then you can look from that perspective, right? That's just one quick way to look at it, right? Sometimes we get too caught up in our head, like, I don't know this, I don't know this. Man, all the information is there. We know it. We know it. We just gotta trust it. We know it. Did that answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
Is it possible to have more than one target customer per phone?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You have to think about for every, every business is different, right? You do B2C, right? You might do a grass-fed meat, and then you might do a non-grass-fed meat. This shows you how much I know about actual. All right. So yeah, how much I know. All right. All I know is it tastes good. All right. That's all I know. But there might be a certain audience that gravitates more towards that. Like it might be you might look at economic status, right? You might look at a certain part of people are ordering from a more wealthy neighborhood, right? They're ordering this type of meat. And then you want to go on the other side of the tracks, and they might want a more affordable, economical option, right? So there's all kinds of different things from that perspective. Did that answer your question?
No.
Okay, of course you're gonna be different.
Yes.
All right, so look, now we did the homework. Now that is just the beginning, okay? This is where the real work starts. Now you know your audience, so now you kind of know a little bit more about your business. Now, so when we're starting to build this prospecting list, I've got my best friend Henry on here reading his newspaper. He wakes up every single morning, he reads his newspaper, and that's what he's been doing for 40 years, right? This newspaper and things of that sort are what we consider traditional, right? A traditional media. And I still think what gets lost oftentimes is now in this world of technology and everything of that sort, people kind of sleep on how traditional media is still very valuable as far as sourcing prospects and leads. So like there's things like networking events, right? The Conway Business Expo is coming up here shortly next month, right? There's things that you can do to go in and introduce yourself and meet all the different vendors that are at that list. And once you meet those vendors, then you match it up with your demographics and you match it up with the firmographics and see if those businesses match. Now, newspapers, magazines, there's articles in all these newspapers and all these magazines on a monthly basis, and some are online newspaper articles, but they do it on a weekly basis. You can always be looking through those things as well. But then I tell you, and I'm gonna talk about this again, but referrals. I'm telling you, that stuff does not die, okay? Referrals are still alive. However, there's also a piece that you have to be very proactive with getting referrals, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Are you good? Okay. All right. So after we built a list of some of our, once we went through our traditional platforms, we searched through the network, we did networking events, we went through some newspapers and magazines, and I've got referrals, and now let's say I got a list of 10 prospects now, okay? Got 10 prospects, good, sweet, solid, awesome. Then we do step 2, let's get a little bit more modern, okay? There's a whole bunch of different things and tools that we can use that are free for the most part to help you help build your prospect list. So for instance, I put an example on here on Google Maps, right? This is such a great tool when you look at just going up the street, right? I think my girlfriend used Google Maps to go up to Walmart. That's probably a mile away from the house. She doesn't go anywhere without Google Maps, right? But also from a prospecting perspective, Google Maps is a database of nothing but businesses for free. You hear me now? Free. I don't know about you guys, but I love free, okay? If I can find some information for free before I have to pay for it, best believe I'm gonna use it for free. I still haven't paid for Twitter Plus or whatever it is now, right? Or X or I don't know, whatever it is. All right. Google Maps. Look, I just put in here businesses near me, all right, and then it pulls up a long list that has to scroll, refresh, populate of all these businesses that are just in Conway, Arkansas, right? If I know that I'm a B2B guy, and excuse me, and this is more of my B2B line here. B2C, this is a little bit harder from Google Maps perspective, because you can't just pull up people's house addresses like that. You know, it's a little bit invasive, you know. But there's other things you can't do legally. Now, B2B, from a B2B perspective, it's a wealth of knowledge in here, right? Like if you're selling, if you're like a wholesale tire guy, you put car dealerships near me. Search the area, run the list, and then now you've got addresses, you've got phone numbers, and you've got websites. And you know what's on those websites? Contact information, right? You get the about page, right? You see the CEO, the general manager, sometimes the assistant, all these different things, which is there for free at your fingertips. All right, and also social media groups, right? Like there's all kinds, and in the B2C world, this is highly important from a social media group perspective. There's communities on Reddit about farm to table stuff, right? Am I using the right analogy? It's okay, good. Ooh, look at me. I'm learning all about your business. All right. So look, there's a whole bunch of different things from social media perspective. There's Facebook groups where people are looking for farm to table, where they're looking for homemade farm fresh eggs and all these different things, right? We have to find those social media groups. And yeah, it might take time to just keep searching beef, cow, and all these different things. But there's all kinds of Facebook communities, there's Reddit groups, and there's even if you go on Twitter, there's hashtags. There's you can search for literally the words that you need. There's a lot of different ways that you can, from a B2C perspective, utilize social media groups. Also, there's ways from a B2B perspective, you can utilize social media groups as well. There's networking groups of other sales professionals, of other business owners in some of these social media spaces. You just gotta find them. LinkedIn, I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about LinkedIn because I feel like everybody kind of understands how LinkedIn works, right? As far as from a networking perspective. All right, so look, we've done those first two steps. Then how do we make our rich list? All right, how do we make that list? Now, there's one thing we need. I always tell new sales reps, new sales professionals starting out, you always want to have one source of truth. One source of truth, because what happens is now between here, I found 10 maybe prospects that fit all my ideal customer profile. And then on here, I probably found 80 just doing this in a day. So now I've got 90 different prospects. Now, one thing we need to do is we need to put all that in the list, okay? We need to put that in the list to make sure that we're staying organized, right? Because as you'll see through here, there's going to be certain things and tactics in which you always want to make sure that you're keeping up with how you're handling those prospects, okay? Now, I always say one source of truth, not a list here, not a list there, because then what happens is people, we don't update all these 15, 16 different lists. If you're using a CRM, put in the CRM. If you're using an Excel spreadsheet, use that one Excel spreadsheet. All right, cool. We got our 90 prospects. Now we gotta talk to them. All right, we gotta make that phone call. Right, we gotta send that email. We gotta do all that stuff. And all that stuff is what I like to call my bag of tricks. We got a whole bunch of bag of tricks, right? As far as how to outreach and connect with these different prospects, right? Cold call, right? Picking up the phone, saying, "Hey, I'm Zach. This is my business. Nice to meet you." Cold emailing, "Hey, I'm Zach. This is my business. If you need me, it's nice to meet you." Social selling. "Hey, Bob, congratulations on that new award. If you need any help with marketing, reach out, let me know." You know, that's commenting on LinkedIn, things of that sort. Sliding in the DMs, what they say these days, right? All that stuff. That's social selling. All that's a part of it. And then these last two things, people just scream and say EWE, but I tell you, these are still the most successful ways of doing it. Door-to-door and referrals. Because nowadays, nobody is going to somebody and saying, "Hey, my name is Zach with Dave Creek Media, nice to meet you." No one does that anymore. You want to talk about separating yourself? Be that person that goes up to somebody's front door and asks for a client, just says, "Hey, I'm Zach with Dave Creek Media, just wanted to pop in and introduce myself." That's it. If you ever need anything, reach out to me, give me a call, right? You don't have to do it in a sleazy way. I'm not asking anybody to go door to door to door, hounding people for an hour, 2 hours long, or anything like that, but just make the introduction. And also with referrals. So I said there's a big way in which most people just sit back and wait for referrals. They say, "Well, you know, Jerry's been my boy for 25 years. I trust Jerry to, keep telling people about me." But whenever you trust Jerry to keep telling people about you, now you have taken the sales process out of your own hands and you put it in Jerry's hands. Now, do you expect Jerry to be more engaged about your business as you expect yourself to? No, the answer is no. Heck no. No, Jerry has his own problems. Jerry got a wife, kids. Jerry got gas to put in his own car. Jerry got his own business to run. All right, so that's one thing we have to make sure that whatever we're doing, when we're digging in our bag of tricks, that we're making sure that we are farming our own referrals. What does that look like? You make a sale, ask for a referral. My guy. Always ask for a referral. Because at that point in time, when you make that sale, that person, they wanted to do business with you. They chose to do business with you. They're excited about doing business with you because they believe in you, right? So at that point, if they believe in you that much, don't you think they believe in you enough to say, hey, why don't you go talk to my friend Jerry? All right? Jerry's tired of us now because we just keep using it in all these other scenarios. Now, but when I say whenever you're doing all this stuff, be yourself. I tell you, what's the number one social media platform these days? Facebook. TikTok, right? Yeah, I mean, all of them are very successful still. They all do crazy numbers. Facebook, Instagram still very successful. But TikTok has had this meteoric rise, right? And then you even hear about this other one. It's hard, like, you know, guys, I'm not that old, I promise. But it's hard for me to even keep up with some of them. But Be Real, right? The other one where it's like, I'll take a picture of me and you can see like my crusty toes on the other side of it and all this stuff, right? You know, the whole Be Real thing that you got, right? Like, because what some of the things that people are understanding is that people love authenticity. People love that now. People love to feel like they're not being sold, right? So the one thing I always recommend when I'm developing new sales partners, don't be Zach Carter. Because Zach Carter ain't gonna work for you because you're not Zach Carter. Okay? Zach Carter works for me because I'm Zach Carter. All right. And so that's what you always have to do is be yourself. Don't just go on ChatGPT and come up with some sales pitch, right? And then just start email blasting that out. You got to put your own flavor on it. Yeah, you use ChatGPT, help you with the structure on what you want to do and all that stuff, but always put your own personal touch on these things. Yes, sir.
How do you balance being authentic, but then also tailoring your sales pitch to that specific person that you're dealing with?
Yeah, good question. That's a great question, actually. So there's always a piece in, once you understand your business and what you have been doing for so long, you understand certain things work for you, right? Because that's your business, and you understand that's your life. If I'm sell, do you sell chickens? You don't sell chickens, okay, right? So you're not gonna start talking chicken language when you go talk to somebody, right? Right? You're not clucking or not doing any of that stuff, right? You're mooing the whole time, right? The whole time you're mooing. That's your language, and that is your lane, okay? And so whenever you're in these situations, and I say, like, be authentic, understand who you are, what your business is, and stay in that lane, okay? Because oftentimes this happens all the time. And Corey, I'm sorry, I may have gotten off a little bit, but what happens oftentimes is that whenever we're going through these sales cycles, sometimes we get so eager just to get the deal done. And that's when we start saying, oh, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that too. Yeah, I can do that too. And then you go home and you're like, oh, I ain't got no chickens. And so now you sold something that was completely out of your range. Now you're like, I got to call my chicken buddy and connect with other chicken thing. That's not your job to sell chicken. Your job is to say, hey, I got something I can save the chickens, but what I can do is take care of all this beef right here, right now. Cool, great. Give me the beef. I'll call homeboy later and get the chicken. So, all right. So, but the thing is, be yourself, be authentic, but also stay true to whatever your business is. Understand what that lane is. Yes, sir.
So Zach does a really good job of being himself, but tailoring maybe his message, even the way that he dresses, to the audience that he's working with. So he might be very professional if they wear a tie. If it's more maybe manufacturing, he might wear a golf shirt. And the language, while it's still always the truth, the way he says it may be different based on that audience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Great answer. All right. So now the next thing, right? I'm not going to get in the weeds on this, but I think this is important for me to mention. For you guys to, this is a little bit of homework. You go home and figure out what works best for you. When we start talking about how do we use technology when it comes to prospecting. Whenever we use technology with prospecting, I've given you certain ways on like how to look up stuff in more a modernized way with going online and using social media and using Google Maps and things of that sort. But what's also super important is CRM. All right. How many of you guys are familiar with customer relationship management systems? Right. I know we all probably kind of hate them too a little bit. You're like, sucks. I gotta log all this information in. It's taking way too much of my doggone time. I'd rather just put it in my spreadsheet and keep it moving. Yeah, I know. I hate it too. I'm a sales guy. I'd rather just cut the deal and just walk away and not do anything, right? But the truth is, there's a lot of value when it comes to CRM systems, because when I talked about that list of 90 people that we went, right? We got 10 from a traditional way, and then we went ahead, we got another 80 from doing it the modern way, right? Now I've got 90 different contacts in there. These CRM systems allow us to use different tools like email automation. It has a lot of tools that we can use to do follow-ups, things of that sort. So there's a lot of value when it comes to CRMs. Okay, so, and now if you don't have a CRM, these are just a list of them. None of them are paying me, so I'm not going to sit here and support one or another. But if one of them decides to cut me a sponsorship deal, I would gladly support one over another. All right, but there's a list of some of them. You can Google best CRMs Forbes list. These are some of the top ones that they recommend. Okay, now we've done all this stuff. We've got this prospect list. We started outreaching through cold calls, through cold emails, asking for referrals, going door to door, going to networking events. We're doing all this different stuff, right? We're dancing with it, right? It's great. I've got these prospects. I'm moving them through my sales funnel. I'm taking them from awareness all the way to the sale, right? You've done all these great things, but now how do we measure this stuff? And why do we measure this stuff? So I got a good quote by the late great Maya Angelou. Everybody knows Maya Angelou, right? I have great respect for the past. If you don't know where you come from, you don't know where you're going. Okay? So if you don't know where you have come from, you don't know where you're going, right? So during this whole process, there's a whole bunch of different things that you might have to reevaluate, right? Is my target audience what I really thought it was? Do I need to make tweaks to my ICP and my target audience? Maybe so. Sometimes maybe your business changes, right? During the pandemic, right? You think about all these distilleries. What did they start selling in the pandemic? Hand sanitizer. Do you think those guys knew what they were doing? They were selling hand sanitizer? No, they knew their audience changed. They knew that for sure, right? Because then you go to a school or you go to somebody's church and you see, oh, Rocktown Distillery hand sanitizer, right? I never thought I'd see it in my life. See churches with liquor bottles hanging in there. But, you know, that's the world that we lived in, right? Everybody was just like, hey, amen, Jesus, give me the liquor bottle, right? And that was that point in time that we lived in, right? So that's what happened. Their whole ICP changed during that period, right? So then they had to work a whole new different prospect list and a whole different strategy to keep those businesses afloat, okay? So it's a constant thing. But one thing we need to do is we gotta know our numbers, right? So successful sales reps know their numbers, right? So this is all about knowing inputs and knowing outputs, all right? So here's a simple formula on understanding what your closing ratio is, right? To understand that, hey, all right, out of my 80 prospects list, I contacted 10 of them, okay? And I contacted 10 out of that 80, and then that is what 80 plus, excuse me, I sold 10 out of that 80 of them. That is, somebody was math from our math guy, whatever percent it is, all right? So this is important with knowing your numbers and understanding how you're doing, right? Because what happens over time, if you're actually targeting the right audience, you know what happens to that percentage? It goes up. It goes up, right? And that's what you want. Because if that number goes up, then what goes up? Your sales. And if your sales are going up, then you're doing good. And then that's what's answering your why, okay? Now, that's all I have for now, but I'll go ahead and answer questions. Yes.
How do you decide when to cut bait with the prospect? Like, what's the number of follow-ups or engagements? What's that process look like for you?
Ooh, that's a great question, because what happens is oftentimes sales professionals spend way too much time going back to the same place they've been, right? If that person has not given you an answer, most likely, y'all, they ain't ready. Leave them alone, okay? Your time is probably more valuable. Instead of keep bombarding that one person, focusing your energy on finding 10 more, right? I went through two different ways. I went through a traditional route of finding more prospects, and I went through a modern route of finding more prospects. And by doing both of those, I may have probably taken 4 hours out of my day and built that list of 80 people. Okay? Go spend another 4 hours and get another 80 people to go reach out to, right? Because what happens is that oftentimes you just need to make yourself aware and live in the awareness stage long enough for you to filter down to the bottom of the pipeline, bottom of the funnel.
Well, and I think sometimes we spend time hoping someone's gonna buy our product or our service, when we could actually just pre-qualify. Ask them, are you ready for this? Is this something you want? Is this something you need? And if you're not, then that's an easy and quick way to cut bait to move on.
Mhm.
And that's what I found a lot of times is the easiest thing to do. Hey, you seem interested. You look like you're interested. Are you truly interested? Not really, but I would enjoy talking to you. I'm out.
Right.
Instead of, hey, I'll call them tomorrow. Maybe they'll buy then.
Exactly. Or another thing that I'm the king of doing, because one thing I don't like doing is wasting my time. All right, because I don't know about y'all, but I think my time is so valuable. You know, it depends on who you ask. They might say my time ain't as valuable. But to me, I think my time is valuable. Right. But one thing I'll ask after I've met with a client, I understand they're aware of who I am. I've given my proposal and they have all the information they need to make a decision, right? Before I even pass the ball to them to put it in their court, I ask, hey, is this a decision you're ready to make today? No, I need more time. Great, you need more time. When would you like for me to follow up with you? Now, because what happens is, now that person isn't just sitting in this ambiguous state of floating, right? And just sitting there wondering like, oh, okay, well, I'll deal with it later. Now, if they sit there and they say, follow me in about 2 weeks. Now they know they're on a ticking time clock to figure out if they are going to make a decision with me in 2 weeks or if they're not.
They set their own deadline.
They set their own deadline. So it's not pushing. It's not me forcing anything on them. It's me asking them when their next deadline is. And then once I've got that date, you know what I'm gonna do? No, I'm not calling yet, guys. I'm not calling. I gotta put it in my CRM. I gotta log it. I don't know what time. I remember you tell me something now. If I didn't write it down, before you get a test, it's forgotten. Okay. So look, I'm gonna put it in my calendar. So hey, follow up with so-and-so on July 3rd. Okay. So then July 3rd comes up. Hey, so-and-so, you told me to give you a call on July 3rd. Are you ready? Are you ready now? Ah, man, I'm not ready now. Okay, well, hey, so-and-so, it's all good, man. What would you like me to follow up with? You know what? Follow up with me in the winter. Oh, here goes the winter. So-and-so, hey, man, just thought I'd touch base with you. I know it's been missing the last time. Are you about ready? You know what? I think I'm about ready. Call me next week. So it's a whole train of appointments of him telling me this versus me taking time out of my day, driving up to go see him and just sitting there, hey, are you ready? And it takes all of that away to where it takes it to where it's a clear, concise pattern. Because then after I call him in the winter, he's like, you know what? Hey, I'm ready. He's ready. It's on his time, and you're not wasting any more of your time.
So using that same scenario, assuming you call in the winter, still not ready, and it's like, well, call me in the spring. At what point are you decide, you know what, this isn't really a great way for me to spend my time?
So,
Or is it situational?
yeah, it's all situational. And too, like, and especially after you pre-qualify them, if somebody can afford your services and they just lollygagging you along. But the truth is, I will ride that train as long as possible. Because you know how much time that takes me just to move a date around and just pick the phone and call and say, hey, just me touch them back. That takes me no time versus me taking time out of my day and all of a sudden just keep like, man, I just really hope this guy I'm gonna go, I'm trying to sell USB. So I'm gonna go stand up there at lunch and see if I can catch him. That takes a lot more time versus pushing the data along. Yes, ma'am.
So we do a lot of vendor events. We do like the teacher's booth. We do a booth at the business expo. We do a lot of booths like that. And we debate on items to give to get people, to draw people into the booth. It's a lot of the around
Swag.
like giveaways, swag, things like that. We also have to keep budget in mind because you pay for the booth, you pay for the marketing, you pay, you pay to be there. And so do you have suggestions on better ideas or things that people actually want
Right.
and would keep and not just trash? Because then it's just wasted money.
Yeah, so there's actually, so it all depends on your audience, a lot of times, too. Depends on your audience, depends on what type of expos that you're going to. We actually, just in the Pulse of Conway, if you go to the Pulse of Conway, we actually have an article up about some tips and best practices that go into that. So I've got some information up here. We also do promotional items. Where we partner you up with one of our client success specialists, and they kind of go through what are some good stuff that most clients like. So we'd be glad to help you guys with that stuff from a promotional standpoint. But yeah, it's always about what type of expo are you going to, and because sometimes you might find that some of these expos that you're going to, some you might value at a higher premium than you might value at another, right? Because there's plenty of expos where I go to and I don't book a table. Like, I don't need a table because this is not for me. Because this expo, all of the customers and clientele and clients or whatever, these aren't my prospects. But maybe those businesses are my prospects, right? And so if those businesses are my prospects, why do I have a booth when those businesses are working their own booths?
You can just go see them.
You can go see them, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'd be glad to help you with some of that stuff. Advice free of charge on some of that stuff too. So
Write that down free of charge.
I said advice is free. Advice is free. Hey, I can do that all day. I can run them out all day for free. But yes, ma'am.
Do you ask your clients about their budget before you meet with them?
Oh, yeah.
And how do you handle it when their budget doesn't meet your minimum?
So if their budget does not meet your minimum, then you just have that conversation with them. Sometimes we get discouraged, whenever, we feel a little icky when we try to tell people like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't afford it. We get icky, but a lot of times this is a good conversation to have with them because they might go in and they might actually have more means to more funds, but they just don't realize how much your services cost.
Right.
They just don't realize it. I sit in conversations with people all the time. They're like, hey, well, can you just, build us a website, run some Facebook ads and all this? And say, I got $100 and some lint in my pocket. You know what I mean? In those cases, I tell them, I say, hey, look, unfortunately, I can't do that for you. For what you are expecting, this is roughly about how much it's gonna cost, right? And at that point, be quiet, don't say anything, wait to hear what they say.
Do you find that most people don't really know what's budget?
Oh, yeah, most people don't. Because at the same time, they don't know about your industry the way you know about your industry, right? You know about all of your suppliers' costs being raised. You know about all these different things. It's just certain things you don't know about. I'll give a great example. The other day, I was having a conversation with Corey about fire trucks, right? Somebody that works for the chamber knows a little bit more information about fire trucks. I was like, how much is a fire truck cost? About $200,000. He's like, no, not $200,000. Way more than that, right? Because that's not my lane. I don't know about those types of things, right? And so oftentimes the people that you're meeting with, they don't know everything that your service entails. But that's when you go in and you explain the value and why your pricing is that way.
But again, that just frees up more time for the next person. That if it is a walk away because of budget, that just frees up more time for the next person.
Yep. It does. And here's another thing too, also partnering with, even if there's somebody else that you could partner with that maybe does a similar like service to yours at a lower price, sometimes working a referral network between those type of situations can help us with.
How do you get somebody over the mindset shift to actually use your bag of tricks for prospecting?
So
People are very averse to
Yeah.
stuff you list, right? How do
Yeah.
they do mindset shift?
So, it's a good thing. So Jacob, one thing I always just say is just do it. Like, I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not sponsoring Nike or anything, but the truth is that it's 100% mindset thing. It's the same thing like eating healthy this week, or going to the gym, or actually waking up to take the kids to school, right? Like, you chose to do those things, right? And if you chose to start a business, run a business, operate in a business, I think you probably is at your best interest to choose to do the things that are gonna make your business the most successful. Right? Because I'm not telling you these things because I read them out of a book. Like, I'm telling you these things because they work.
What if you're scared of cold calling or going door to door? What does that look like?
So if you're scared of cold calling or going door to door, here's some tips. You're going into this business to introduce yourself. You don't have to sell anything the first time you meet somebody. Right? Are you scared to introduce yourself? If you're scared to introduce yourself, then maybe, you can come call me and you can sit on my therapy couch and we can talk about why you're scared to introduce yourself, right? But it's just getting to that point of understanding that every first contact doesn't have to be you trying to close the sale. Because usually what happens is when you're trying to do that stuff, you're not being yourself, right? At that point in time, then you turn into some pushy car salesman. And then what happens is you reek of desperation, and then the client smells that, and they're like, "Oh man, this dude is, oh, God, he came here in his suit, sweating his tail off, and was just blowing his hot breath in my mouth." And I was like, "I'm ready to go." Right? And you're doing all these things, which is kind of uncharacteristic of yourself, right? So always make sure to introduce yourself first. And build a relationship, right? Because whenever you build a relationship first, then the conversation is totally different. Because you build a relationship, you can say, "Hey, Corey, look, hey, I know we've talked before in the past. I want to just make you aware of something that I think I can help you with, okay? Here, I make you aware of it. Say, look, hey man, take a second to look over it. I'll follow up with you next week. And if you want to do it, I'll get you in contact with the right people and get you set up." Nothing about that was salesy. That was just a conversation.
Can I say something to him? Take somebody with you.
Yep.
Somebody that used to do it,
Yep.
and then you'll get used to it.
I was just conceptually thinking, but yes. I've never met a stranger in my life.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He ain't afraid to talk.
Okay.
I was asking, and we are best friends,
Yeah.
but he didn't ask me to ask.
I mean, they just,
But
for
yes,
everybody that's afraid, take somebody with you.
Right.
Somebody that's used to talking, and you just get used to it. I know, because I do a lot, used to do a lot of door knocking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I will say,
There's
I'm
nothing-
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will
It's a
say,
workshop.
when I did a bunch of cold calling, because I'm in the heating and air business, when I did a bunch of cold calling, I needed to get a bunch of apartment complexes. I would call and ask for the manager of the apartment complex, and of course, they already had a heating and air company. I already knew that answer. I knew they already had someone. They had to. But I said, can I become an approved vendor? They're like, well, we already have an approved vendor. And I said, well, I just want to be on your list. Just in case, they get busy, they stop servicing, whatever, I'll just go on your list, they will already be ready. No, no pressure. And they're like, well, okay. And I said, why don't I get an email from you? And then I send over, so I have ready like a flyer with my face on it that shows like who I am, so they have a connection there. I already have my W-9 ready, so they know I'm a legit business. I have my certificate of insurance ready, and I send this big packet of email stuff to them, so they know that one, I'm a real person, I'm local, and I'm legit. Two, I'm legit by having all my stuff. And so then if they respond back to that, or if they even give me an email, then I try to show up in person and say, hey, I'm Sarah, I called you on the phone, I sent you the packet of information, I'd love to work with you, so it's like constantly dabbling in and then getting that information from there.
Perfect.
My question is more about capacity. So let's say I'm a solopreneur.
Yep.
There's opportunities that come my way. And so I haven't had to sell much, but then again, I don't want passive opportunities when I have the capacity in the future, but right now it's like I don't. So it's like, how do you nurture relationships? What's your advice to nurture relationships for later? Like,
No.
Like not right now, on my end.
Right.
Like I don't want to lose you.
Right. So you're saying from like an operations standpoint,
Right.
you're so much capacity you have, right?
Yeah, like yeah.
I'll give you a good example. So my girlfriend wanted this bag, this Telfar bag.
Oh yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Perfect analogy.
She wanted this Telfar bag. And I think this Telfar bag is the craziest thing ever because, as you know, it's like a link goes active and that they've only got so many different things in it, right? But then, you know, she's like, oh, it's active, you better go in there and get me this thing, I'm in the middle of work. You know, order the bag comes in, and I'm like, this was the wait for this bag, and no disrespect to Telfar in the bags, but, you know, I was like, you know, it's a very simple bag, you know what I mean? I'm like, you know, Old Navy got this bag, or, you know, or the, you know, at Walmart checkout, there were those little grocery bag things, you know what I mean? Same thing, same concept, right? But with that, what it does is it generates some type of interest, I believe, because it's a limited time and a limited window, right? So I think for you, your selling perspective is probably understanding that, hey, you get at capacity at X amount of customers, clients, businesses, or whatever your business is, right? And then you just be very transparent and say, hey, look, Corey, look, Glenn, I'll be able to work with you in September of next month, next year, or whatever. Does that help?
Yeah, but I think I was worried about, it's gonna go away, so like. just
No,
small things.
it's not. It's only gonna go away if you're not being proactive. If you're not dominating that conversation and how that's gonna flow, yeah, it's gonna go away. If you're just like, oh, it's okay, girl, we can wait, or hey, dude, hold on, hang tight. But no, if you plan and properly plan it out, understand what your workflows look like, and you understand when you're in the peak and when you're in the valley, understand, hey, look, I should have time to be able to complete your order on X day. And then that's when you go in that CRM system or go into your Google Calendar and put a follow-up and say, hey, I'm gonna follow up with Jeff at this time for business.
And that's actually an opportunity to build that rapport. You know what, you're a perfect customer for me. I would love to get with you in September when I free up the time.
Yep.
I don't want to take you on now because I couldn't give you the service that you need or whatever, but you are an exact fit for what I'm looking for. And it's all about how you present it. Like you said, if you're like, I can't help you right now, I'm too busy. Well, they're gonna go somewhere else.
It's much better. My plan right now is like ignore the email and then say, I'm so sorry.
We're all out for all of you. We do that too.
No, I'll tell you, this is another thing, I know, somebody throw them out of here, but the thing is, like, even with a restaurant, I don't know about you, but I like to go to a restaurant with a couple people on the inside before I go to one where there's nobody in there, you know what I mean? I wanna know some other people think the food tastes good too, you know what I mean? So that's a good problem to have, is being in that capacity, because what you don't want is to be sitting there just waiting on orders. That ain't what you want, right? So that means, but shout out to you for having a successful business.
So I think going back to
Go ahead.
your analogy with Ed, like Ed is primarily in the beef business, and he promises a customer this chicken or pork product that he's not specialized in, just to close that deal, and he's overpromised, and then he's trying to make it work. That just leads to an inauthentic relationship. And if you were better, he was better off by not making that sell, and saying, oh yeah, I can sell this beef, and now I can figure out the chicken and the pork later.
I think we have one more, one or two more, whatever.
Okay, so real quick, so this is a little bit on the lead gen, so solopreneurs, people probably, so there's a lot of appointment setting services out there. What's your thoughts on appointment setting to get you to the process to where you can have that sales conversation?
Right, so, ask the question, so the appointment setting for yourself with the prospect, correct?
Like Calendly?
No, an actual appointment setter that's prospecting for you to make sure they get to your ideal audience person in front of you for that sales meeting.
I'm of the belief, even if you're in a solopreneur standpoint, if you schedule your time appropriately, you can make it happen without having to go and outsource and pay somebody else to do that. Because a lot of this stuff I showed you on finding your prospects, that can be done outside of business hours. That can be done at 7 in the morning. It can be done at 6 o'clock at night. It can be done during Monday night football. It's a whole bunch of different things that you can do this stuff because it's brainless work. It's just looking at lists and then understanding once you have your list and then blocking off time during actual business hours to make those calls. But I'm not against it. You know, that's usually a bigger conversation on like, what does your revenue look like and all this other things from a P&L perspective. Or is it?
Yeah, so You know, I've been through a bunch of sales training. I went to Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah.
Right out of college, so I got kind of like 6 houses, really good training. For
Yeah.
The man, still, this phone gets heavy, and I can't get it up to my ears sometimes. What do you do to motivate yourself to get that next call or sit down for a calling session?
Work out your arm process.
Yeah.
For some reason, I can't get to hear.
What keeps me going is just understanding, like, one, you know, I work with a team, right? So it's a team of people. At the end of the day, from my perspective, if I'm not picking up those phone calls, or my team, because I actually have a team that's doing this stuff, if they're not doing what they need to be doing, then problem. People aren't getting raises, people aren't getting promotions, and we're going to lay some people off, right? We're not constantly bringing business in. So that's what gets me going. If I was a solopreneur, it would be like, man, I don't want to go work for the man no more. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get it done. You know what I mean? So one more, then we're in with Jeff.
So that's the thing where if I don't want to do today, I'll put it in my phone for tomorrow and make it really easy on tomorrow me by putting like literally the names in the calendar.
Yep.
And their phone numbers, so it's no digging required. It's like, okay, Jessica, tomorrow you have 30 minutes to call these 5 people. And then tomorrow Jessica doesn't have to like come up with some excuses or be distracted in her inbox trying to find her email or their phone number.
Mhm.
That has helped me a lot.
If you don't block off time, then like, if you don't control your schedule will control you. Period.
My question was about email
Yeah.
automation and how you personally use that.
So there's a lot of different things that we can do with email automation.
I
Right?
mean, you.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
So we use HubSpot, we use CRM for our stuff. Now, like I said, there's a million of these things that you can do. I use Salesforce, I use Dynamics. They all do the same thing, right? To a certain degree and certain levels. But email automations, I think about certain things that you could do as far as maybe not that first contact, but if you've got people that once you got to that point where you feel like, man, they kind of wasted my time a little bit, but I want to still keep engagement with them. That's email automation works best for those.
Do you use workflows like that in HubSpot?
Yes.
You put somebody up in there whenever you
Yes.
have on your background?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
Good job.
Okay, well, I'm sure, I don't want to speak for Zach,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that he would hang out if you had additional questions.
sure
or
will.
even afterwards. He's a sales guy. He wants to talk to you forever, right? So.
Oh, and I have my business cards and some trifolds about everything that I actually sell. So if you do need help with marketing, I know you talked about like understanding demographics and things of that sort. How do we target stuff? I've got a lot of cool fancy tools that can actually show people's living rooms, right? So a little weird, but hey, I can do it. So.
That's gonna be a sales guy, right there. Look at that, look at him. All right, to wrap it up, we have 2 upcoming workshops I want to talk to you about. We have a strategic growth intensive this Thursday. It's a day-long session where we will help you draft out a growth plan for your business. We'd love to see you there. You can go up to ericagunter.org and register for that. We are also later this month hosting our Minority Pitch Night. We host it every year. You can come as an attendee and support the minority businesses that are pitching, or you can come and pitch your business idea if you'd like to pitch. That is September 28th. It'll be right here in this room. It's usually a really fun event. We'll have food. It'll be really fun. Great networking opportunity. Speaking of networking opportunities to prospect for your business.